Now, how do you expect people that have worked for 246 years while your mothers and fathers and great-grandparents, you white folks, were accumulating wealth? You got a 246-year head start and then wonder why we don't compete.
What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to my space. This is Evans Rayola, and guys, on today's video we will be talking about the unequal start of being American, and to cover this issue is Dr. Fred Price, and you all know how Dr. Fred Price is passionate in matters Black history. So guys, I want you to watch this video.
Think about this. They worked as slaves for 246 years without getting a paycheck. Now, how do you expect people that have worked for 246 years while your mothers and fathers and great-grandparents, you white folks, were accumulating wealth? You got a 246-year head start and then wonder why we don't compete. You must be crazy. It would be understandable after 400 years of no pay to low pay. See, for the first 246 years, from 1619, when the first slaves were introduced to continental United States, to the end of the Civil War, that was no pay. And then from 1865 up to the late 1960s, it was low pay. Lowest pay on the totem pole. And then you expect us to compete and then get on your high horses and get upset when we talk about we can't make it. Turn the tables around and see where you would be. God, be fair at least. If you're not going to be honest, at least be fair. Which ethnic immigrants in America have worked harder than black slaves? Certainly the Japanese, Chinese, and the Germans did not work harder in America than black slaves. Listen carefully, if the Japanese, Chinese, and the Germans were the hardest workers, would it not have made more sense for colonial white society to have enslaved the Japanese, Chinese, and Germans, rather than blacks who were allegedly lazy and unwilling to work? Why would supposedly bright businessmen spend 250 years traveling all the way around the world to kidnap 35 to 50 million innocent but lazy blacks, then knowingly bring them to America to do work that other ethnic groups could do better? End of quote. Are you seeing anything? Are you getting this? Again, don't take this personal. I didn't call your name, and I don't mean it personally. You ought to have enough sense by now to know that if I'm bold enough to say this, I call your name. So if I haven't called your name, then it's not personal. But I want you to hear this. You need to hear it. Go, girl. I like this. All right, listen to this. Americans need to think about that before they throw too many rocks at supposedly lazy blacks. It's easy for people to criticize others when they don't know the whole story. People view blacks, when they want to criticize them for being at the bottom of the economic totem pole, as being unwilling to pull their own weight. They seem to think that we blacks are equal and therefore ought to achieve like everybody else. That would be true if we all started out on the same equal footing. But friends, that is not the case. Listen up. In a radio interview, Dr. Claude Anderson was asked a similar question about blacks in America. His answer was enlightening, to say the least. This was the question, and I quote, "Why can't black Americans do like Asians have done, or European Americans who have come to this country during the height of immigration and achieved the way that they have?" White folks, listen to this, because you're primarily the ones that criticize blacks for being lazy and shiftless and unwilling to work. Not all of you, we know that, so don't get personal. Here was Dr. Anderson's answer. Number one, blacks have never been treated the way Asians and Hispanics have been treated coming into this country. They have never been treated as an ethnic group. Secondly, all those other groups came into this country without the legacies and the baggage, the psychological baggage of having been enslaved and having been Jim Crow. Thirdly, they came into this country voluntarily versus having been dragged and bound, sold into this country. Fourthly, they came in with their culture intact, and they were able to use their culture to create businesses and create a broad sense of community and community unity. Fifthly, they kept their religion. They had their religion to again be a center of their lives for their values and to instill a sense of values for their families. And sixth, they could go back to their country of origin and use business opportunities to bring in artifacts to set up warehouses, wholesalers, and dealerships to sell artifacts from their culture. End of quote. Think about it. I am sure that many blacks as well as whites have never thought about it that way, never looked at it that way. What a disadvantage. And they want us to compete on an equal footing. That's like running a 100-yard dash or a 100-meter dash. And then you start out at the 90-meter mark, and us black folks start out at point zero, and then you cross the finish line and stand up there and say, "Now, how come y'all didn't do better in the race?" No, I want to dramatize it because, see, there is a root to every plant. And this foul plant of racism has roots. We've got to find those roots so that we can dig them up and destroy them, or else the cotton-picking plant will grow again. You can go and cut a tree down, cut grass down, cut bushes down. If you don't deal with the root, that baby's coming back. Given enough time, it will return without an invitation. So think about it. How unfair. The 18th century British statesman and orator Edmund Burke has been credited with saying, I don't know if he did or not, he's been credited with saying this, I quote, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." You get that? Listen to it. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 29 and verse 2, it says, you don't have to look this one up, but write it down. Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 2, it says, quote, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan." End of quote. Our people are groaning, black and white alike. What are we going to do about it, America? What are we going to do about it? Continue with business as usual? Or are we going to rip up the roots, get this turkey out of the ground, and plant a brand new vineyard?
Family, that right there was a powerful speech from Dr. Fred Price. That was very, very powerful. Many a times I like his teachings because, I learn a lot from these teachings. He calls out these issues of black people straight on, point on. He hits the nail on the head. In today's topic, he speaks about the unequal start of black Americans. He says that black folks worked for 246 years without a paycheck, while white supremacists were accumulating wealth. You have like 246 years head start. That's what he tells the white folks. Like, these people had a lot of time for themselves. These people had time to grow themselves. These people had time to amass wealth together, while black folks were working for them for the first 246 years before the civil wars without getting even a penny. This is the unequal start that black folks had to pass through before they started being just anyone in the US. From 1619 to the end of Civil War, those were like 246 years with no pay. Then the second half, from 1865 to the late 1960s, it was low pay. From this timing, they were advanced, but now they were being paid a little bit of money, low wages, Which ethnic immigrants in America have worked harder than black slaves? That's a question that Pastor Fred Price asked the congregants. Which ethnic immigrants in America have worked harder than black slaves? There is no one, of course. Black slaves are subjected to a lot of work. All that timing without being paid. 246 years is no joke, man. Then the other half of the slavery with low pay. It was crazy. They've worked harder than anyone in the US. He gives example of the Japanese, Chinese, and Germans. And he says that these people did not work as hard as the black Americans in America. Why would, he continues, why would bright businessmen spend 250 years traveling to kidnap 35 to 50 million innocent, lazy blacks? Because you all think that black people are lazy. Why would bright businessmen take more than 200 years to go and look for energetic black men? 35 to 50 million of them to come to the Americas to work for them, if indeed they were lazy. The black people did a lot to the history of the US. The black people have developed a lot of things in that country right now. To do works for ethnic groups that could do better. There is no way that they could bring black folks to do works for ethnic groups that could do better in these works. Then Pastor Fred Price proceeds to quote an interview that was done to Cloud Anderson. You all know Cloud Anderson. And he was asked a question in this radio interview that Pastor Fred Price is quoting in his conversation. He was asked, why can black Americans do like Asians, or rather European Americans who have achieved a lot of things? Why can't they be the same? Why can't they do just like the Asians? Then Cloud Anderson gave out 6 answers just to bring it into context. The first answer that he gave was, black have never been treated the same way Asians and Hispanics were treated coming into this country. Blacks were subjected to a lot of work, to slavery. Our children were being forcefully taken to work. You must work. Our wives were being battered, and some of them were being raped by white supremacists. They did not go through the same thing. Just like Dr. Cloud Anderson has mentioned here, black have never been treated the same way as Haitians and Hispanics. Then the second answer he gives is the other groups came without the legacies and the psychological baggage of having been enslaved. Then the third answer is they came into this country voluntarily. The other races came there, the other ethnic groups rather, came voluntarily. Then now they are blacks, where the white bright businessmen left the Americas and looked for these black folks for more than 200 years for them to be brought forcefully into the US. I hope you understand until there. They came into this country voluntarily. That's just make them very, very different. Then the fourth answer is that they came in with their own culture intact. Then the fifth one, they kept their religion. Then finally, the sixth answer, they could go back to their countries and use these opportunities to create business opportunities, to bring artifacts into their own countries and be able to sell. They were privileged. These are privileges that black folks did not have in America. Black folks are subjected to slavery, forceful slavery. People died in the process. Out of the 50 million guys who were transported all the way to the Americas, some of them passed on in the way. These people were even not being given food in the timing. They were struggling. Then Pastor Fred Price uses an analogy of a 100 meters race as to why he thinks you should never compare black men in the US with white supremacists. He says this way, that in a 100 meters race, in this analogy, white supremacists move 90 meters ahead. Then the black folks start in the 0 mark. Then after the white supremacists win, they ask this question, why didn't you all do better in the race? How do you expect them to win that race? If you know very, very well that you started at the 90th mark in the 100 meters race, while they were starting at the very starting point, the 0 mark of the race. We must deal with the roots of this issue to resolve this rot. If we do not undig the roots, then this issue will continue disturbing black folks. That's why we want to tell white supremacists that there is no way they will ever compare black people of the US to themselves, because they started the race unequally. This was an unequal race, and black folks have always been special. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Kindly do consider subscribing to my channel for amazing black stories in Africa and in the diaspora. And guys, I am doing a series of black history in the Americas, and I hope you're enjoying it. Kindly do consider subscribing, kindly comment down below. And guys, I am so grateful for the support so far. We are hitting 12k subscribers after this video, or even before I post this video, and I am so grateful, guys. So thank you so much. Kindly comment down below, let me know what you think about this video, and guys, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys, and see you all in my next video. Goodbye.